What's going on, guys? We are back here after game one of the Sixers and Knicks series. We have a special episode for you today. We have Jayson Buford, my old podcast co-host, in the house. We also have his cousin, Alexander, here, both Knicks fans here to dunk on me after the Sixers got annihilated in game one of the Sixers-Knicks series. And I just want to say, before we get into anything, you have to give me a break, because we just won the championship 3 days ago. Beating the Boston Celtics is our championship. Finally getting over
that was
home.
Huge for y'all, man, for sure. That was huge.
We were having the parade hangover, the celebration. We're hanging the banner, So the fact that we even played a game 2 days later you can't blame us for the performance that we had last night.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, the emotional high coming off that definitely showed itself in game one.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't be too surprised at that, just because of all the sort of baggage, recent baggage with the Celtics. So for you guys to pull that off was huge. But like I said, it showed in game one. So
I always think that you can tell when a team's super tired when they're not like fighting through screens extra hard, or the passes aren't quite as crisp. And that's how I felt when watching the Sixers in game one last night. Like, you can tell there was a little bit of a energetic and emotional hangover that they had from beating Boston. I love the fact that you guys beat Boston. You guys beat Boston so badly that Mazzulla, after the game, started doing the classic "it's not a failure" thing that like NBA athletes now do if they choke.
When the star player is going on Twitch, it's a problem. You've done a job on them.
I said that Jaylen Brown Twitch stream was so Sixers coded that I'm shocked that it wasn't a Sixers. Like, that is something that happens to the Sixers, not the Celtics. Like, the Sixers lose and embarrassing. They collapse 3-1. And then our star player goes on whatever and just says, the refs weren't fair. They should have called this. They should have called that. Meanwhile, I don't know, my favorite part of that whole stream, other than his little crew of misfits that he had with him.
So weird.
Extremely strange. My favorite part of that whole thing was he was just pointing out every single foul that could have been called on the Sixers and ones that we were getting that they didn't get. And then on the last play where Jaylen Brown forearm shoved Tyrese Maxey into Joel Embiid's knee, he goes, "Yeah, I guess they could have called that one."
Amazing.
But yeah, no. So here's the thing. I've been following the Sixers team all season. This is kind of what they do. They've had, this was at least just off the top of my head, I would say probably the 7th or 8th time this season, including twice in the Boston series, where they kind of show up lackadaisical. They really are not crisp defensively, which the Knicks certainly took advantage of last night. The offense has no sort of rhythm, and the game is over by the third quarter. And the other team just absolutely pounces on them. They've been blown out a ton. And then they show up the next game. I've said it like this. They can get blown out by anyone that's good. They can beat anyone on any given night in the NBA. They can also lose to anyone on any given night. They are the pure definition of mid playing up and down to their competition. And coming out of that game, while it's part of it is that I am still riding the high of the first round victory that they had, the few things that I came out of that game feeling was, one, the Sixers, the major difference between these two rosters to me is the fact that the Knicks have an actual bench and can, just to put it clearly, if Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey play that way, we're getting swept. Like, that is not what, like, our whole bread and butter, which the Knicks were completely prepared for, is the Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey 2-man game. And I anticipate that at some point they will have a better performance than they had last night in that game. A lot of their offense was just really based on getting free throws, and there was no sort of rhythm in that 2-man game. The Knicks weren't overhelping and leaving guys open, and the things that kind of have always been able to get the Sixers offense flowing. And then two, the defensive stuff, like the thing that I actually probably am the most worried about in this series is the Karl-Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid matchup, only because now Brunson made everything last night, and he's obviously also his own thing entirely with the mid-range against the drop coverage and all of the stuff that he's killed us with in the past. But the Karl-Anthony Towns matchup specifically, it seems like an issue to me because we're coming off a series where we just played the worst offensive / defensive front court rotation in the NBA outside of Jayson Tatum. Like their centers compared to the Knicks centers, Cat and Mitch and those guys are just not even close. And that was the reason why the Sixers were able to get back in the series. They won the series. And the difference between this is that Cat can pull centers out of the paint. Joel, post-knee injury, has really struggled in space to guard and to rebound in a way that he used to be. Like, whatever you can say about Joel's offense in the playoffs and the shot being shaky and the streakiness of his scoring and his playmaking and turnovers and all that stuff, before the knee injury, Joel was the most reliable defensive player on the Sixers in the playoffs. Like that was the reason we hung in a lot of those series that we ended
especially
up losing.
Remember the Toronto series? I think that's the epitome example of that, where his gravity on defense was so good that the plus minus numbers are like inflated almost.
Yeah. It was every series that the big ones. Part of the reason why he was always gassed at the end of games was we put a ton on his shoulders offensively and defensively. And now he's more of an offensively tilted player because he's just become a super skilled, better playmaker. Everything about his game is just better on offense, but defensively, he's just not the same guy. And the Knicks attack that over and over and over again in last night's game, running a lot of offense through Karl-Anthony Towns. And then when Towns didn't have it, it was, running actions for Brunson off the ball, getting him into the mid-range and him just picking apart everything. So that matchup is inherently problematic and something that I think that the Sixers are going to have to deal with pretty quickly. Like, I think last time we had this issue in the series, we tried to put Joel after his knee injury the first time on Josh Hart, and Josh Hart killed us on the offensive glass. He made a bunch of open shots, all that. And they'll also use him like a small ball center. And so that's just a mismatch. And that's something that the Sixers, they made adjustments last series. Nurse is really good at making adjustments, but I would say the depth problem, the size problem for the Sixers, and that mismatch on that side of the court are the three things that came out of last night for me thinking if they don't bounce back and make this a competitive series, those are the reasons why. But I saw Jason's post and I tend to agree with him. Like, that was probably one of our worst games that we'll play. Yeah. And even if the Knicks win this series in 5, I think that there is a world where the Sixers can hang and compete, and in clutch games,
another route like that. I don't think.
Yeah, there might be another, because the Sixers are going to have to give up something on defense. They'll probably get a lot of open shots. They won't shoot probably 60% or 70%, whatever they shot in that game from 3, although they did in the Hawks game too, I guess. But the long and short of this is that I think that the Sixers have to get better games out of Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, and then they also defensively need to perform similarly to how they did last round. Easier said than done when the Knicks have a lot more offensive talent than that Boston team did. And then lastly, I think the big problem for the Sixers is Kelly Oubre in the starting 5. Like, Oubre is a player that was incredible for us defensively in the last series and really was the main reason why. But also, that's a team that is built around isolation style wings and guys that were okay with shooting pull-up jumpers. And this is just a different matchup. And also the main thing with the Oubre thing, and like, I think we're 0-3 against you guys when Oubre plays and 2-0 when he doesn't play this year. And there's context to all of that.
I realize that.
Yeah. But a lot of people pointed this out in the early games of the season because Hart didn't play in one of those games and Embiid didn't play in one of those games, and we won in Madison Square Garden. You guys were on the second half of a back-to-back. But the long and short of this is that Oubre gives someone that they can hide Brunson on defense. And when we put Dom Barlow at the 4, we were killing you guys on the offensive glass because they can't hide Brunson on him. And then they switch Brunson onto VJ. And while VJ is still limited as a ball handler, he can get downhill, and he made Brunson pay. It was just way too late in the game for that. So that's just kind of my gut feeling coming out of game 1.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. My biggest thing is, as I tweeted, And as we just talked about, Philly will play better than that. And so the Knicks have to find a way to counter. OG's been excellent. Like, watching OG's been a pleasure, I think, since the second Hawks game. Really watching him play has been great. If that can continue, that's what I was surprised at, how I wasn't as afraid of Maxey. You know, I think he was struggling with the ball a little bit. He slipped. One of the balls slipped in the first quarter, and I thought that could have been a big play, an emotional play for you guys, and it like slipped out of his hands.
He didn't have 3 turnovers the whole first round, and he had 3 turnovers last night. So
yeah. And watching Embiid, it's like he's like a step slower than the rest of the court, and I think, or rest of the players on the court rather, and I think that can help you guys at times, especially in the offensive half court. It's kind of slowing the game down, like the center of gravity of it all. Like, it's so herky-jerky. That was one of my things, like, before the series started, that I felt that Embiid plays this, like, herky-jerky style basketball that really confuses the opposition, you know, and, like, flusters them a little bit. But he felt like a step slow, and Robinson was very – like, the stretch where you guys were doing the hack of Robinson, and I thought that they were going to have to get Mitch out of the game. And instead, Mitch like turned it up defensively, and it didn't really matter.
That almost inspired him to sort of reach another level in terms of his intensity, you know? Because sometimes I think in the past we've seen with Mitch, like, he kind of gets a little down on himself
when he can't make shots,
when he can't make the free throws. And I think and the crowd always is really behind him in those moments too. So MSG was great last night, as it always is. But yeah, to your point, Jason, I think, you know, Mitch turning up the heat a little bit defensively was a big factor there too.
And this is also one of the differences between this matchup in 2024 and now, was that the Sixers had a massive advantage on first shot offense the last time these two played, and they really lost that series because of rebounding. Like, that was the difference between this, like, the looks that the Sixers were getting last night versus the looks that the Knicks were getting were just vastly different. Like, the first shot offense has always been an advantage in this Maxey and Embiid kind of 2-man. Like, they generate a lot of good shots. And this year, funny enough, they had some of the worst shot quality in the NBA, but I think a lot of that is just they're very good, tough shot makers. It's kind of like, I'm sure that the Knicks Brunson's teams had this in the past too, where their shot quality is really bad when your best player's taking a bunch of mid-rangers and there's a lot of isolation. But when you have these tough shot maker guys, that can usually translate into a playoff context. And the quality of looks the Knicks were getting were great. They made every single big shot in the, and honestly, this is 100% cope, but also people were posting this ironically, I think last night. I think Roger Sherman posted this as a joke, but I actually felt this way. I would have rather gotten blown out in this game than had the game be a 10-point game in the fourth quarter and Nick Nurse plays all of these guys. We're coming off 3 straight games where all of our starters had to play 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And if their legs, like the way that this series is scheduled, like last series went 7, one day in between every single game until game 7 of this series, which then would be a two-day rest. So if the Sixers can't push this series, they're not going to get any more than 1 day rest for the rest of the series. So if that's the case, you have to take advantage of the fact that, you know, you're not, when you get blown out in these games, you just have to punt on them. Like, you have to punt on the fourth quarter because you need to get guys' legs under them for the next game. And that's a massive advantage for the Knicks, mainly because, and a lot of people have pointed this out with the difference between the Tibbs and the Mike Brown team, is that, like, they have the deeper rotation, and Nurse is obviously kind of more Tibbsian in the fact that he likes to go with a shorter rotation. But the most pathetic thing that I found when I was doing these previews, when I went on the Strickland and Knicks Film School podcast to talk about this stuff, was the fact that they asked me who's a Sixers bench player that Knicks fans don't know about that could have a big game or a big series. And I literally couldn't come up with anyone, because the only the only players off our bench who have had any sort of impact in the playoffs are all known quantities, like, or commodities. Like, you guys obviously know Quentin Grimes, and he was horrible last night. And then Andre Drummond, who everyone knows. So and like is obviously at a very different stage of his career. Whereas you guys have a depth.
I thought Deuce was excellent.
Deuce was great.
I thought even Huck Porty came in last night and was solid.
Yeah, I mean,
when
he
got his chance.
He had the silly pass where he like got the rebound and like threw it.
Yeah.
That pass was insane. I mean, we were up like 30. Who cares?
Obviously, like throwing in, like with all the foul trouble and stuff like that. But
you guys had an 11-man rotation before the game was a blowout. Is the point here?
Right.
Yeah, like you guys were playing Clarkson. You were playing like. If the Sixers can't take advantage of the Knicks playing Jordan Clarkson at small forward, the series is over.
Shamet got in the second quarter at some point, right?
Like it might have been a 12-man rotation now that I think about it, because Deuce played, Jose Alvarado played, Jordan Clarkson played, Mitchell Robinson played, Shamet played, and then Huck Porty played. Yeah. So that's at least 11. There might be someone that I'm forgetting here. And
is there some at the end? Kolek played at the end.
That was garbage time. I'm saying, like the garbage time guys, obviously that was different. But the main advantage that I would say is not only are the Knicks have the rest advantage coming into the series for game one to be able to just take care of business in the way that they did, but there's also this advantage in that you have real NBA players coming off your bench. The Sixers are like Justin Edwards, who was an undrafted free agent last year, is our 8th man. And then Dom Barlow, who I think should get some. Dom Barlow needs to play in this series only due to the fact that the Sixers don't have a power forward. And then it becomes this exchange of, okay, you're going to put Dom Barlow out there and everyone knows this guy cannot shoot. So they're going to leave him wide open in the corner. He might be able to duck. He might basically be able to do the Josh Hart thing where he ducks in and gets offensive rebounds and he can provide some rim protection on the other end and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, any other team in the NBA that is making a serious playoff run does not have Dom Barlow coming off their bench. Another guy, like, he was on a 2-way contract to start this season. So I think the major differences between, like, people will blame Nurse, but there's really nowhere that he can go. Whereas Mike Brown was given some options. Like Huck Porty being the exception. Huck Porty's more in that bucket where like Huck Porty played spot minutes because Mitch, they did the hack Mitch and he kind of had to get thrown in there and did well in the time that he was in there. But the other guys like are real, like Deuce McBride is a real NBA player. Jose Alvarado is a real NBA player. They're not perfect, but they are guys that can come in off the bench and give you some solid minutes. Yeah. And you also have the best bench player in the series by a mile in Mitchell Robinson. So if this Knicks team is going to be really hard to stop, not just for the Sixers, for any team, if Mikal Bridges looks the way that he did in the last 2 games, because the one kind of weakness I felt coming into the playoffs was the fact that he just hasn't been right at all this season.
He's been brutal.
He's been terrible.
Outside the last couple games.
And he finally started to, get some confidence. He's been getting to the basket in transition. He's been making his open shots. And they really don't need a ton from him. But when OG's on the heater he's on, which I think there's an argument to be made, OG's been one of the 5 best players in the playoffs so far.
He's been great.
I mean, if this shooting continues throughout the series, you just kind of throw your hands up. Yeah. Because what can you really do when a guy is shooting, what is he shooting, like 65% from the field in the playoffs and 50% from 3 or whatever? What
have you seen out of Bridges, when he's struggling, and what have you seen that he's done differently in the past couple of games?
So the main thing I feel like with Bridges is that he's a weird player because the idea of him is so tantalizing, like a long wing who can make shots. And actually he made a really nice read on a corner 3 last night that I was like, I sometimes forget that he actually can make like pretty basic like reads and passes out of the pick and roll because of his time that he spent with the Nets. But it felt like this year, like, and honestly kind of going back multiple years at this point, I know that he had a really nice series against the Celtics last year and played them really well in general. But during his time, I would say going back to his last year with the Nets, like defensively, he just hasn't been the same guy. And there's been a level of intensity because the offense of like, you can live with the ups and downs of like the 3-point shot not always falling and like him being heavily reliant on the mid-range and not getting to the basket or the especially the line. For a guy who has the ball as much as him, he probably gets to the line because he's just so not willing to take on contact.
He never takes the ball to the basket. That's why.
He never takes the ball to the basket unless it's in transition. Yeah. And so that is the thing. Like when
it's
they
a very
talk
low risk style. Yeah.
Exactly. So in general, I feel like that has been that's kind of held him back from being the guy that they thought they got when they traded for him, right? Like the idea of him versus the reality of him. But like last night, like it was very funny because I saw a lot of Knicks fans saying, put Josh Hart on Maxey, and I was like, he is not CJ McCollum. Like, you do not want, like, Josh Hart is a really good player, but he's just not going to be able to keep up with Tyrese Maxey. If I were them, I would try Mikal Bridges, because Maxey is someone who, like, he's going to beat him off the dribble occasionally just because he's one of the fastest players in the NBA, but Mikal can recover because of his length. He actually was fighting around screens last night. Like, he was not just dying on every screen like I've seen from him in the past, where it's just like, man, he really gets ate up on those screens. And then the defense is in rotation and they're scrambling. And, you know, so the long and short of it is that, like, it feels like the last 2 games specifically, he's been a lot more confident as a scorer, and his defense, he's just actually competed in a way that he hasn't really been able to with the Knicks outside of that Celtics series last year. And once again, like, I've talked about the importance of roster building in the modern NBA, is that your 5 starters all being able to do something with the ball and being a threat to the defense, and also not being able to be played off the court defensively, is the best way to build a contender in the modern NBA. And I actually, funny enough, coming into the Celtics series, I said, I think the Celtics will win. I picked the Celtics in 5. I said, but if the Sixers, I said, if the Sixers, and I mean, I was looking pretty good through 4 games, right? Like, I didn't expect.
Did you think it was you two, Alexander? Like, did you think it was the Tatum injury that really put the Celtics in the tank?
I do not feel that way. I think that the series is already turning. I mean, we heard Joe Mazzulla say post game after Game 7 that the series turned because Joel Embiid showed up.
Yeah.
I mean, he came back. What was it, game 5? Is that right? And he
came back in Game 4, but he was terrible.
Game 4 and was terrible. That's right. Yeah.
It wasn't. He always has a bad warm up. Like, game 1s and first game back are usually terrible for Joel, which is why I'm not dying over last night. But I will say, yeah, it was really 5, 6, and 7 where he took over that series. And honestly, I picked the Knicks to beat the Celtics in these. Like, I thought the Celtics were a really good team. I didn't think they had the ceiling that this Knicks team has. And it was mainly due to the fact that they're playing, you know, the same kind of thing that I'm talking about with the Sixers, where, like, they have a weakness that you can go at in terms of the depth, in terms of the defensive issues that they were going to have. And it didn't really matter if Joel didn't play. And my thought going into that series was, if we see Joel, it's later in the series and we're going to lose that first game back, we have to win 2 of the first 3 games to have a chance. Well, somehow they pulled it out of their ass. And to be clear, I do think Tatum being not 100% Tatum was a huge part of that, for sure. But also, I think the fact that, like, the Celtics,
even if he had been 100%, Tatum has a complicated game, I think, that tends to manifest itself in negative ways when his shot's not falling. Like,
and it also was incompatible with this version of Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Like, when those guys have had what they had a few years ago, where they had the games played together, the synergy combined with just much better talent and spacing around them, they can win the championship. When these guys have a more flawed roster around them, when they're playing a lot of isolation ball, and it's, you know, when it gets down to nut crunching time, their clutch time offense is just falling apart because the Sixers ultimately have better tough shot makers.
That was what I was going to say about Paul George coming in and being a legitimate shot maker for you guys. I thought was huge in that series. Like, having that
he
third
was the other one
option
who showed
there.
up last night too. Like, Paul George
him
is
being a real
probably
dude
the
again
most
is
innocent.
huge.
Yeah, he's the most innocent of anyone on the Sixers post this suspension that he had.
A hot shooting George actually kind of scares me. So does VJ, by the way. And in the first quarter, VJ had a shot in the corner, right in front of Hart's face, where I was like, oh damn, like VJ could really score, you know?
Yeah, he's a hooper, man.
Yeah, he's a real quote unquote hooper. But George also, I think, like, George is one of the main things, like, main impediments to the Knicks making it, I think, to the Eastern Conference Finals. If George really shows up, then the Sixers actually, like, have a chance at this, because I think Embiid and Maxey are going to be very good in Game 2. But it's like, can VJ, like, give some contributions?
Sure. Yeah, but then again, that's the difference between a team that has, and once again, the Stars outplayed the Sixers Stars last night. And if that happens, this is not a competitive series. But the Sixers have 4 players they can rely on.
Mm-hmm.
And the Knicks have had that, I feel like, but they're getting more contributions out of the fringe guys. And that's what takes them from a good team to a great team.
To a great team, yeah.
And that is where when these margins get thinner in the playoffs, and you just need someone to make a big shot or someone to make the right defensive rotation or to not get owned on the glass. Like the Knicks are very good at those things. And I said, like, I genuinely am I picked them before the season to go to the finals. I picked them before the playoffs to go to the finals. And I have Thunder Knicks as my finals. And I don't think they're dead on arrival in a series like that. Like, I think that the Sixers...
We played them well in the regular season.
I was going to, and that's something that they haven't really done in the past. And this and this version of the Thunder without Jalen Williams, it feels like the Jalen Williams piece is huge, and it hasn't mattered yet because the Thunder haven't played a level of competition where that matters. But when you get to a point where I went on the Knicks Film School podcast, and Andrew, the host, brought up a great point. He was like, the reason why I think they were able to hang with the Thunder a little bit better this year is because everything is just so dependent on one guy and Shea. And while he's this amazing all-time player, he also is not going to, like, the defenses that tend to kill Brunson in that matchup or Cat is like defenses that get you moving, or like you have to, or offenses that get you moving. They move the ball a lot. They're making you make quick decisions. Like they might own, a Knicks fan brought this up in the Discord today. Like they might own Brunson on the offensive glass. Like those are things that I don't think that you have to worry about in a Thunder Knicks matchup. If that is the finals, if J-Dub isn't right. And I think that that's ultimately what makes this Knicks team have a championship level ceiling. Whereas even if the Sixers come, like, I think they will make this a series at some point, they have to figure out a way to get VJ and Maxey out running and turn the Knicks over first off, because that was how they hung in the regular season games when they played them. They have to get better games out of their stars. They also have to figure out who the 5th starter is. And if it's not Oubre, pull him quick and figure out who the 8th man is in this series and roll with it, because you can't go down 0-2 to a team as good as the Knicks in the playoffs. And I know they just came back from 3-1, but I think that the level of talent here and just the overall matchup is like, it's a lot more urgent in this game too. And historically speaking, with this Knicks team, kind of similar to the Celtics, I've said they're kind of a mirror image of each other, in the fact that like they have these historic collapses in big playoff games at home. They have this style of basketball that I think the Knicks have way more offensive talent than they did in the past. This is probably closer to the 2024 Celtics, to be honest with you. But they have this ability to kind of crush teams in game 1 and then sleepwalk into game 2. Like game 2, I think ultimately decides this series. And even if the Sixers get through, like, I'm very confident that the Knicks would take care of business against the Cavs and the Pistons. I know the Pistons matchup has been weird for you guys this year, but there's just
been weird. But the Pistons aren't really the Pistons are the 2011 Bulls to me. They're not really that good.
No, you're right. I picked them to play you guys in the conference finals, and I don't feel
in that first round.
Yeah, I don't feel good about my Pistons Knicks conference finals pick anymore.
Really?
No, I don't feel good about the fact that I picked the Pistons. Like, I think the Cavs can beat them.
Okay. You think the Cavs
that's on the table?
I think
that's on the table. I
don't believe in this Cavs team too. I want to be clear.
That's watching Mitchell. Watching Mitchell struggle with the same stuff he continues to struggle with every playoff, and watching
he
Harden
looks way worse this year than he looked in the past too. Like even in the past, like you could deal with some of the playmaking stuff and the defense stuff and the decision making because he would just make insane shots. And this year, I'm like, he's not even making the insane shots. So to me, the Harden Mitchell fit is not as clean as I think people projected it to be. And then combined with the fact that I just don't think he looks right now. Like I think he's playing through an injury. So I mean,
his athleticism isnm isn't quite the same. The burst isn't quite the same. Yeah.
Cade will be by far the best player in that series.
Yes.
I think it is obvious that Cade is the best player in that series. He's also given the Knicks fits. But if the Knicks have the same kind of approach, like Maxey's given the Knicks fits in the past, And honestly, the first 2 games of this season were 2 of the best games that Maxey played all year when we played against the Knicks. And the last 2 games he's played against them, like, you guys have kept him contained. Now, Cade is more of a multi-dimensional scorer and playmaker than Maxey in a half-court setting, and he's able to attack teams in different ways than Maxey.
And he's bigger.
He's bigger,
right?
sure.
Yeah.
Like, Cade's an amazing player. I'm not taking anything away from Cade. I also just watched him get absolutely locked up by Franz Wagner for 3 games, and then and that's an offensive context thing too, right? Their spacing's terrible, whatever. He turned the ball over in the middle of that series more than any player in the history of the NBA in 3 straight games.
Yeah.
And that is something that, while Maxey might struggle as a scorer and he's not close to the level of playmaker and pick and roll guy as Cade, he's not going to have games where he turns the ball over 8 times and keeps a less talented team in the game in that regard. Like, I think Cade's a better overall player than Maxey, but I think that there are differences in their games, and these matchups are very different. But, like, I just think that if you have no shooting threats around Cade, your secondary scoring option is Tobias Harris, and Jalen Duren is targetable on defense. If that's the conference finals, I have no reason to not pick the Knicks in that matchup.
That game 7 Tobias, by the way, was so funny.
So I said this before. Are losers winners now? Like, the Sixers beat the Celtics. Harden had a good game 7, even though it was a classic 3 for 9 James Harden game. Tobias Harris had a good game 7. Like, have we flipped the scripts? Our losers win. Cat is having an all-time playoffs. People have always called Cat out for all these years for whatever.
Cat's
like,
been great.
I have long been a Cat defender.
Your best player.
I've long been a Cat defender, and this is the best defense I've ever seen him play.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty confident saying that. I was screaming all year, for the Knicks. It felt like they just didn't give him the ball late in games ever. It was weird. And Mike Brown, credit to him, have found a way to unlock his game. I think in a way that we didn't really expect it to come, like, almost, because he's really been the fulcrum of our offense. And we're kind of doing a Jokic-ish sort of gravity thing with him, where the Knicks
using how
players are playing around him.
Yep, it's the Sabonis.
Yeah, exactly.
Kings, but Cat can actually shoot.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I don't think that a lot again, credit to Mike Brown. I don't think that this is an adjustment that a Tom Thibodeau would have made, honestly. And it was sorely needed after Game 3 of that Hawks series, and obviously we've railed off 4 blowout wins in a row here. So
I was arguing with somebody about Tibbs versus Brown, and the guy who I was arguing was a Tibbs guy, and I was like, I get what you're saying about Game 2 of the Hawks series, that, like, if we had Tibbs, maybe the foot doesn't go off the gas. Like, I get what you're saying, but Game 3, we would have lost by 10 because Tibbs would have fucking kept Bridges in the whole game.
Tibbs is an old school coach. I mean, Tibbs is one of the greatest floor raising coaches we've ever seen. I mean, he got you guys to the 3 seed with RJ Barrett.
I think the Magic should hire him. The Magic hire him. They'll be the number 3 seed next year.
Like, I was gonna say, I think Tibbs is the perfect transition coach. I think Tibbs is the guy that he's in. Funny enough, him and Doc being close makes a lot of sense. Like, he's in the Doc Rivers mold of, like, he'll get you to your next coach. And honestly, I was even surprised. Like, I disagreed with the decision when they let him go last year, because I was just like, if Aaron Nesmith doesn't turn into prime Klay Thompson against Oklahoma City for 2 minutes, you're in the finals. Maybe because you guys fired him like the day that Game 7 would have been played. If I remember,
I was not a fan of the firing either.
Yeah.
And I haven't been convinced by Mike Brown all season, frankly.
Yeah.
But he deserves a ton of credit for the way that he's, flipped this offense on its head, over the last couple of weeks here for the Knicks.
I think of it like this. I just, real quick, whenever those reports come out of the locker room about, like, the Danny Green thing, where he's like, I picked the Knicks to go to the finals, but then I reversed it because I heard the vibes were bad in the locker room. Who are the 2 players you think would be giving off the most bad vibes when they're not super involved in the offense?
It's OG.
Of course.
Because first of all,
this
Green
has been
and
a
OG,
thing since Nurse coached him.
Also, Green and OG played on the 2019 Raptors. So that's, like,
of course. So that's probably where he got it from.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's probably where he got it from. So it's OG. And who else? It's
Bridges.
I would say
Bridges had the thing last year.
Cat. I would say Bridges or Cat. And I don't think that Cat is a problem in locker rooms, but I do think that he's obviously like he can have mood swings from time to time. And I actually have grown to respect him a lot as a person and a player over the years. But the thing about those three specifically, like if they feel like they're completely uninvolved and like, while Jalen Brunson is this great, incredible isolation talent and can pick apart a defense in a playoff context, like if they feel like they're completely uninvolved and they're just standing around watching Brunson cook, then I feel like that is something that might dampen the team's vibes. Whereas when you're running this 2-man game with Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson and it's opening up everything for everyone else, then not only are you harder to guard in a team context, but you're also making everyone happier. So it is like it's a two-way street basically in terms of like you're keeping everyone involved, you're keeping everyone happy, and also I think it makes you harder to prepare for in a matchup because like 100%. When Brunson was cooking last night, I was like, if Brunson cooks us, Brunson cooks us. Like I'm living with the results. Like I'm not going to let everyone else get involved and kill us. And they balanced that style really well last night. And ultimately what killed us was when we were constantly in rotation, leaving guys wide open, cuts to the basket, you know, and honestly, I think OG I've always been a little bit skeptical of like why he wants more on ball stuff. Cause I just have never, I don't think he's a good playmaker. I don't think
Jason calls him bagless.
He is.
Yeah. He's just super strong and athletic. So he can get, and he's also massive. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Will told me on our stream the other night. Do you know what he shot from the free throw line his freshman year of college?
I do not.
Blew my mind that he shot like 62% from the line in college. Because most of these guys that become good shooters in the NBA as wings, when you look at their college numbers, there's usually some indicator that like they were a good free throw shooter or they took a ton of threes or whatever. OG is one of the more interesting like outlier development stories. Okay. So he actually shot 47%. I apologize. His freshman year of college from the line, 52% in 2 years in college from the line, and has become one of the best wing shooters in the NBA, which is really does not happen. So one, testament to his work ethic. Two, testament to the Toronto Raptors and how they developed his game and his shot. And three, like this Sixers matchup, we don't have a power forward unless Dom Barlow's playing. And Dom, as I said before, brings his own issues for the Sixers that like Kelly Oubre is just going to get bodied by OG in this matchup. And you don't want to put Paul George on him because you want to save Paul George for either the Brunson matchup or you want to hide Paul George on someone that's less of a shooting threat like Josh Hart and have him roam off the ball a little bit and get into passing lanes. Because one of the things watching Paul George this year that's really stunned me is just how smart he is off the ball and on the ball. He's kind of a genius level defender. I don't really think he gets enough credit for that because he's just big and athletic. And I think people kind of just assume that's why he was such a good wing defender, but he has amazing hands. He's super smart. He reads situations really well on the defensive end of the court. But this is just something that the Sixers are going to have to deal with because this version of OG is a mismatch for, I think, a lot of teams that don't have the size to deal. Like, I think that OG would struggle maybe more in a Pistons matchup than he would in a Sixers or a Hawks matchup.
Yeah, I think he's played out of his mind. Like,
great, man.
Yeah.
Great.
And I think the bagless thing really shows in the regular season more than I think it shows now, where the Knicks offense is just like they're moving the ball. You know, like he's cutting, right, which is a huge part of his game. I think in the regular season, like the no back stuff really shows its face. But
he's also like, kind of ugly to watch. It's not nice to look at.
He's not robotic. He's not really an aesthetically pleasing player. And I think that sometimes confuses people when someone's not like aesthetically that pleasing. I think it confuses people about Cat sometimes too, because he's on the ground a lot. He's like flailing and all these different things. So you can Cat, the whole like Cat soft thing is honestly based off of like aesthetics, right? Like I don't think like Cat gets pushed off the block that much. I just think that sometimes when you look at Cat play, the arm is flail or the body language is bad because a ref didn't call a foul or something, But I don't think Cat's not a soft player, right? Like I haven't seen that so far since he's been a Knick. And I think OG sometimes struggles with that, where like the aesthetics of his game look a little slow and look a little kind of like hackers. But as a player, he's very, very good.
Chat GPT hoops.
Yeah, right. What I say about Cam Boozer, right?
Yeah,
like Chat
exactly.
GPT hoops, you know.
I saw a Legend of Winning clip the other day, which was him celebrating the Sixers beating the Celtics, and he said, "It was the first time I've heard anyone else call the Celtics Chat GPT hoops." So shout out to him for saying he was celebrating them winning.
How do I maximize the math in an NBA game?
It literally.
What do you say, chat?
Yeah.
And I think it's honestly like I do think that. I think the regular season versus playoff stuff is like part of it is yes, the Celtics just missed their shots, but and like if Peyton Pritchard makes that corner three at the end of that game, maybe we're talking about the Celtics and the Knicks.
When
right
you
now.
play a high variance style, this is what happens.
And ultimately, getting downhill, getting into the paint, and getting paint touches is what like because we'll talk about just the Celtics style in general versus like teams like the Sixers and the Knicks and whatever like. The Celtics 2 years ago got paint touches. Like they were able to get the defense in rotation to make those threes wide open. Now they're not generating as many paint touches. Now the defense is able to play you one-on-one straight up more. And they've had a massive talent drain over the last few years. And in the regular season, like you said, that doesn't necessarily matter. But in the playoffs, when it comes down to nut crunching time, like if teams get tight and they shoot bad for 2 or 3 straight games, it can literally lose you a series, which it did in that series. So this is just such a completely different matchup because not only it's harder to prepare for a team that has guys that can score. OG can score in the mid range, Brunson can score in the mid range, Bridges can score in the mid range. Like there's an unpredictability to the Knicks offense that there wasn't to the Celtics offense. And it's not just the talent that makes it, a different series for the Sixers, but it is why I feel like I talked about, like, I think that gap fillers are more important than they've ever been in the NBA. Like guys that can just like get you a bucket that aren't your stars, guys that are also playing their role well, like OG on defense and making his shots and all of that. And like, I literally was like, because I do think that ultimately if they win the championship this year, if they get to the finals, even this story will the swing of this will probably be around this new Mike Brown offense with the cat-led stuff and whatever, and the 2-man game with him and Brunson. But the other part of it, I think, will be like, is OG just the best role player in the NBA right now? Because like
I'm trying to think.
Like, because you would have said Aaron Gordon before, but like Aaron Gordon is older and injured, and Derek White was another guy, but like Derek White has shown that he is clearly not at the level.
J-Dub, are they role guys?
I would say so. That is an interesting distinction because like if you're saying OG's a role player and Chet isn't, like why? Because I think Chet might just be like the Wemby of role players. You know what I mean? Where it's like they're probably averaging a similar amount of points. They're probably getting a similar amount of touches. And they're not playmakers. They're not guys you're going to like run your offense through, but they're going to get a lot of low hanging fruit. And like OG's been miles better than Chet in these playoffs. But I would say, I think that's a good shout. I guess I know that it probably doesn't reflect in the stats, but just J-Dub's ability to play make a little bit and J-Dub's ability to take over in playoff games and have like 40-point games at times or 30 whatever point games. Like I would say he's more of like a lower tier star than a role player, but I think Chet and OG are probably the two. I think that would probably be the argument, right? Because Chet is not someone that's going to be running your offense. He's going to be more of a secondary third scorer type guy. And he's still providing that elite level of rim protection and defense that OG gives you, but OG's
Castle
even more versatile. Castle's interesting. I think all these guys are better than Castle. I think Castle's a really good defender, and I think that he's an interesting driver ball handler. His flaws are just going to be massively on display in this Wolves series, I think. Like, he turns the ball over a lot when he has the ball. He's just not a shooter at all.
Yeah.
And that Spurs Wolves matchup, which is fascinating to me. Because the Wolves are the new Miami Heat to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Wolves are just a team that is like, it doesn't matter what they do in the regular season. They're going to be demons in the playoffs. I pick their series wrong every single year. Like, I always pick them to lose and they win. And the Spurs just don't have it seemed like in that first game, they just don't have the size, and the Knicks and the Wolves are showing the importance of having like good forward play outside of your stars, like real power forwards, real guys who can play on the wing. And other teams are kind of building their team more around just the guards and the bigs, whereas you guys have that as your main star and you're filling in between them. Like it to me, it just makes a massive difference in a playoff context when you're going up with a smaller team and you're just getting absolutely pulverized with size.
Yeah, I think OG, just getting to him, like, this offense that Mike Brown has sort of inputted on the fly, I guess, during these playoffs, he's been obviously Cat has benefited massively, but so is OG. Jayson brought up his ability to cut. That's always been a huge part of his game. I just looked it up earlier. He's like amongst the dunk leaders in the playoffs, and he's just been eating off those off-ball movements off of Cat. He's also a good screener. Like, this offense, it doesn't work unless guys are cutting hard off the ball, guys are setting good screens, and guys are just being active away from the ball. Because you have to make these defenses guard.
Yep.
And obviously the passes there to be made because guys are cutting hard, setting good screens. And OG is good at both of those things. It's a huge factor.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have necessarily any elite offensive skills, but he's just kind of good at everything except for passing and playmaking.
Yeah. I with all that being said, I still do think, like, the 2 games we lost against Atlanta, to me, the losses happened because Brunson didn't play well. Because Brunson thought that he reverted back to a certain type of, Kobe iso ball style of play that I think he gets obsessed with at times when things are going very well.
Yeah.
He is always at his best when things have been moving around, and then he can devastate, a team. In Game 5, he devastated Dyson Daniels because I think the ball was finally moving around, so Daniels couldn't just kind of lock in on him.
Exactly. 100%.
100%. Like, Brunson just has to realize, look, I can kill. I can really take over. I just have to move the ball first. And then, okay, the defense is, trying to focus on Cat. They're trying to focus on OG, Bridges,
they're not set. They're at the wrong angle. He plays, his whole game is based on angles. And
angles, right, exactly. So if someone's on the wrong end, who was guarding him last night?
So they started with they're going to throw 4 different guys at him. Like, I think they started with Oubre. They changed to VJ at one point. They might have started with VJ and then changed to Oubre. I can't remember. But either way, both of those guys are going to take on some of the assignment. They tried Paul George, but Paul George just can't navigate around screens at his age to be able to kind of keep up with him. Also, I just don't love the idea of having Paul George on someone that first off, I know that he struggled with like honestly our best Brunson defender was actually Nick Batum. I don't know if you guys remember.
Yes.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yep.
He kind of had Brunson in hell in those first 2 games.
And
I was like,
yep.
I want to be clear. I've been very pro Nick Nurse. I think Nick Nurse has done a great job considering the context of what has happened since he became the coach of the Sixers with Joel's injury, and I think Morey just being terrible during these years outside of just very low-hanging fruit stuff. But the thing that drove me the most insane about that was like the very obvious 5 best players on our team that year were Maxey, Oubre, Batum, Tobias, and Embiid. And we started 38-year-old Kyle or 37-year-old Kyle Lowry to start that series. And he benched him by game 3 or 4, but the series was over because he got too cute, basically. And Batum was someone that I felt like should have taken the assignment from the jump because Batum's really smart. He moves super well. He's long. He was still athletic at the time, even though he was not quite as athletic as peak Nicholas Batum. But the Sixers, like, they'll try Grimes on him. Like, Grimes was a disaster last night. And Grimes is, as you guys know, as Knicks fans, I call him Sonic the Hedgehog, where it's just like, he plays at such a frantic pace and he doesn't know how to play with pace still that there are games where he will single-handedly win you the game, and there are games where he will single-handedly lose you the game. And in a series where the other team has such a massive bench advantage, like he has barely scored the last 2 games. He's been his on-ball defense is great, but he always gets back cut. Like there are just things that we really need from Grimes and Oubre in this series that if they can't give it to us, like this will be a quick series. But the long and short of it is that I literally, I'm not even kidding. I sent into the Discord today and I said, can we do the thing that, so last series when the Celtics and the Sixers played, the Celtics started game 7 with like G leaguers, like Ron Harper Jr. started, Luka Garza, who was their third center for the whole series. Man. I was just like, I was terrified because I was like, this would be classic Sixers to lose to this team. But they came out and I was like, they took it personally. They were like, these guys are fucking scrubs and we're NBA stars and starters, like respect us. And they took a lead that the Celtics eventually cut into, but it was too big of a gap to overcome by the end of the game. And I literally said, can we do a mini version of that and put Maxey on Brunson so he feels disrespected and just see if we can get, I don't care if he cooks Maxey. Can we try to do a little bit of a math game here where we're just not letting everyone cook us and get involved in this really connective offense that we're just not going to be able to guard? Can we get them into isolation? And I don't think I think the Knicks have clearly figured out that they're just better playing this way. But even though I know Brunson has cooked us, like I would rather live with the results of one player destroying us than the entire team just getting together and becoming impossible to guard.
Yeah, I asked you because I was eager to wonder if you were thinking that, if you were thinking just put Maxey on Brunson and see.
It's the foul stuff that they don't want with it. Because if Maxey fouls out, the series is like beyond done. And by the way, in the Celtics series, he had 3 turnovers in the first game. Then he had, this is the Maxey stat, 1 turnover, 1 turnover, 1 turnover, 2 turnovers, 0, 1. He had 4 last night in 27 minutes. Yeah. He is like the lowest turnover guard in the NBA. Like for anyone other than Shea, it's Shea and him in terms of if they have the ball, they're not turning it over. And if that is something that happens in this series, once again, it's something that plays directly into the hands of the Knicks because the Sixers transition defense is garbage. The other thing I was going to say is, like, to me, the difference between the Knicks and the Pistons is exactly what you guys were just talking about with getting Brunson involved off the ball. Cade's the same way. Cade's all angles. Cade's all craft. Cade's all overwhelming you with force and all that stuff. Like, I know they're different size players, but Cade, when they don't have someone that can do that for Cade, he turns the ball over all the time. Yeah. When they don't have someone that can do that for Cade, he can struggle to be an efficient scorer. And like, when you have these guys that can get someone set into an action and the defense is already tilted, that just makes it so much harder to guard and for everyone else. So I really do think that the Knicks, if they get through this series, have a massive advantage in that matchup as well because of that.
Yeah, I'm looking at Detroit numbers right now, and first of all, Jalen Duren did not have a good series against
horrible.
Orlando.
He was bad. Yeah,
he was really bad.
Decent in games. He was decent in Game 7, but
it looks really like him and Thompson, they just don't have it offensively in the playoffs.
Yeah,
like their second best player has kind of sort of been Tobias or Duncan Robinson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
It's Tobias has been their second best player, and I'm telling you, as someone who has been a part of the Tobias as your second best player in the playoffs experience, there's a ceiling to that. Like that, and in the first round against weaker opponents, which by the way, the Magic were not a weaker opponent. And then when Franz got hurt, they became a weaker opponent.
Yeah.
That's where Tobias really feasts. And when you get, and by the way, I kind of expect Tobias to have a really good series against the Cavs too, because the Cavs perimeter defense against the Raptors was pathetic. Scotty Barnes killed them. Colin Murray-Boyles killed them.
RJ Barrett's 16-game player.
For the second time, on offense.
My guy.
On offense.
My guy.
16-game guy, possibly, you know?
Well, here's the thing. Will always says these forwards, and even Oubre showed this in the last series. These forwards who can just randomly get hot are just like, all right, nothing's working. Like, our stars can't get anything going. They've blown up all of our actions. We just need a guy who can occasionally cook. And that's why you have the random Kuminga game you had last series.
Mhm.
That's why you have the random Benedict Mathurin games that you have, the Kelly Oubre games, the RJ Barrett games.
Yeah.
Like having those
It's what
guys.
we need Bridges to be able to do, right? Like,
And that was the thing that I worried about coming into the series was, did that game 7 give him the confidence going into this matchup, a matchup that he's actually historically done well in, because we kind of we're okay with letting guys shoot mid-rangers. And is that going to get him into a rhythm coming into the series? And am I going to have to hear about how we traded away Mikal Bridges and he killed us in the playoffs, even though Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was the next pick after that pick?
Yeah, Bridges, man, like I reached kind of my limit with him, in that Hawks series. He's definitely bounced back. Obviously, Game 7, was what it was. He was able to take that into Game 1. But one of my main issues with him is that he just has way too many games. Yeah, Game 6. He has way too many games, where he doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Where it's like 2 points in like 20 minutes, like 4 rebounds and like 3 turnovers, where he's just doing nothing out there. Like he's just out there, just doing
Tony's
cardio.
selling it.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't, be a starter for us. One of our, our fourth best player probably, at least on paper, and be doing that as often as he does. So it's been encouraging to see him, find his game a little bit and actually look to the basket.
Yeah.
In a way that he wasn't before. But
he needs to really score to an attack, because it also puts more onus on Hart, who actually really cannot score on offense.
Yeah.
In the half court. Like that's like someone who just like does not have a half court offensive game.
He's made open jumpers all year though, Josh Hart.
He has, but the thing about Hart is it really works when he is, like, it's cliche to say, but it really works on the Swiss Army knife type of thing, where it's like
he actually fits that mold. Yeah, it's real for him. Yeah,
defending. He does that little move he does in transition where he just like dribbles, and then he like turns his body sideways and like does a righty layup. Like that's the move, right? And then the occasional
it's coming too.
It's coming, but he's big enough, and he's got
you want him to be like your Draymond on offense,
right? Yeah.
I mean,
very
he's not
similar
the
to
defender
Draymond.
And with his trump card too is the way that he can just get off misses in transition. He's going, like, you know what I mean? That's sort of his. That's his superpower there, and we've
massive.
As a ball handler, that's been.
But if Bridges isn't good, it puts more onus on him, right?
Yeah. 100%. So this is the pathway for the Sixers to get back into the series. It's only been 1 game. I think they will absolutely throw their best punch for Game 2. They'll have some adjustments. The best way for the Sixers to get, I think the first start is getting Cat into foul trouble like they did at the start of last night. They couldn't take advantage of it last night, but that is, if they can get Cat into foul trouble, and honestly, I think, to me, people will say that's on Embiid, like, to get him into foul trouble. Like, I actually don't like when Embiid gets guys into, this is going to sound insane. I don't like it because it actually gets Joel out of rhythm as a scorer. I think this is more on Maxey to attack him downhill and make him guard the basket and try to get OG as far away from the play as possible, so that he can't blow up every single action that we run like he tends to do in this matchup. Because Maxey being aggressive, getting downhill, being a scorer, like, that is ultimately what got us over the finish line. Like, Embiid and Maxey, this version of Embiid and Maxey need each other badly. If one plays well, the other one is gonna play well, and if one of them plays bad, both of them play bad. And I think the Sixers need to lean into more Maxey leading the charge, getting downhill, getting Cat into foul trouble early, making him be a paint and rim protector in a way that he's proven that he can be at times, but it's just not something that has historically held up well against speedy guards. And I think that combined with the fact that, like, to me, if you start the next game and Kelly Oubre is just missing, he shot 45% from the corners in the regular season, and he is shooting like 12% from the corners in the playoffs. Like, if he's not making his shots, the cutting and the ancillary defensive stuff is just not enough for a guy who does not pass the ball, who does not make his open shots, who does not pay attention on the glass at all. Like, they need to pivot immediately. And honestly, I know Grimes played terrible last night, and I know that the Barlow thing we talked about, like the complications that brings. Either throwing Barlow out there for size as at the starting four, moving Paul George to the 3, playing VJ Maxey, Paul George, and Barlow, just to help Embiid defensively, like might be a massive part of this series. And then 2, leaning into the 3-guard lineups before the series is over. Last time we played you guys, Buddy Hield was the worst player on the court in the first 2 games of that series.
Where is Hield? He was on the Hawks?
Yeah, he's a deep bench player on the Hawks now. Yeah, he was in the Kuminga Porzingis trade. But the what I'm trying to say here is, like, Buddy Hield was the worst player on the first 2 games. That, like, Dante DiVincenzo had him in hell. He couldn't get anything to fall. Anytime he was out there, the Sixers just could not do anything. He was getting targeted on defense. And I said after game 1, I was like, if Nurse doesn't pull him early in game 2, this series is over. He didn't pull him early in game 2. He let him play through it. And we ended up choking that game away at the end of the game. He finally pulled him for Campaign in game 3. And Campaign came in and got the Sixers back into the series, but it was too late. And right now, I know he treats Kelly Oubre like his only child. It's unbelievable how much he loves Kelly Oubre. But if Kelly Oubre starts off the next game bad, Brunson's cooking him. He's missing all of his shots. He's stopping the ball. He can't attack Brunson. They need to go with either the 3-guard lineup or the Barlow thing and just see what they have, because the only times they have ever given the Knicks problems in this matchup this year is when they're running in the open court with the guards and when they have ball handlers at basically every position. And that is the only thing that has been able to make it so that they can crack this Knicks defense. And if they don't do that, I think it's 0-2, and I think that the Knicks could walk away with the series. Like I think game 2 is ultimately what decides whether this is a competitive series or this is a walkover. And I think that they need to stop doing the thing where they wait until they're down 3-1 like last series. I know Embiid also being out was part of that, but like making like hard decisions and making adjustments, and not being stubborn. And once again, I'm not panicking, but I expected the Sixers to compete in this series. And if I'm really at the point where there's no way, knock on wood, unless someone gets hurt and it affects next season, that I could be disappointed with this season. This roster has 4 good players. They have 4 good players. 2 of them played 40 games this year. They're in the playoffs. They beat the Magic in the play-in, who turned out to be way better than we ever anticipated when Franz was healthy. They beat the Celtics in the first round, 3-1 comeback. The only way I could be disappointed overall is if Maxey has a disaster series and the Knicks win in 4 or 5 and someone gets hurt. But overall, this is a house money series for me. And I would just like to see them have some pride like they did in the last series. Come in, make it a game, and try to steal. Because it's the Atlanta thing where, like, if the Knicks get up on you early, it's over. Like, the Sixers are not going to string together enough offensive possessions to come back and win that. I shouldn't say early. If they're taking that lead on you in the third quarter, the Sixers aren't going to claw their way back into it. To me, more it's about the fact that, like, in a close game, I think the Sixers can win. In any sort of deficit in the third quarter, like, the Knicks have the massive upper hand in this matchup. So those are the things that I would look for in the next game when we talk about the Sixers potentially getting back into the series. But if I were a Knicks fan, I'd feel pretty good just about the team in general.
I mean, I definitely feel good. Hard to play, better than we have over the last 4 games. I do think, though, like, one thing as a Knicks fan that I'm looking out for with this offense that we're playing, just be ready for the counterpunch, because eventually there's an element of it that's going to get figured out by a defensive team, whether it's the Sixers, whether it's the Pistons, or Cavaliers, and then forecasting forward, if we make the finals,
Under or the Spurs.
Exactly. You just have to be ready for that. All this action to get killed, and you just have to have a counterpunch ready. That's the only thing I would say from a Knicks perspective. Keep rolling through your depth, keep giving guys off the bench opportunities.
Someone driving by a motorcycle by your house, Jason?
Yeah.
Can you mute that real quick? It's just really loud. Thank you. Continue. Sorry, Alexander.
No, all good. And we kind of mentioned briefly earlier the Knicks bench. I mean, the interesting thing is that a lot of those guys coming off the bench have had like up and down seasons where they've been like in the rotation and out of the rotation. Like Clarkson was out for a while. Now he's in. Shaman was in. Kind of now he's out, like kind of in and out a little bit. Miles McBride missed a ton of time. So those guys.
Ray Allen when he sees a Sixers jersey.
Yeah. So a lot of those guys have had up and down years where they've they're sort of relishing the opportunity to play a role here. Now even Alvarado was out of the rotation for a period. He's a potential wild card too against Maxey in this series. So obviously feeling pretty good, and those are the kind of things I'm looking out for the rest of the way in the series.
So real quick before we wrap this, who do you guys have in the Cavs Pistons series, and who do you think comes out of the West?
Go ahead, Jay.
I'm gonna go Pistons. I just can't trust Mitchell and Harden in big games.
You should,
and I think I can trust Cade, even though I don't like the team.
They don't have anyone to throw at Cade either. It's going to be like Jalen Tyson and Dean Wade are the defenders on him.
I think that series goes 6 or 7, and I just think in a game 6, score 98 to 96 or whatever, like 198. Like
those are going to be some grinded out games, I think.
Yeah, gross hoops.
They're going to be some gross rough. Yeah, they're going to be like.
I feel like there's been more of that this year than ever before. I don't know about it feels like we've had a historic amount of rock fights in these playoffs.
Oh man, that Raptors Cavs was that game 6?
Gross, dude. I think it was
rough.
game 4 in Toronto, the one where they both shot it was a Sunday afternoon game, and they both shot
Sunday afternoon
17% from 3 or something. Combined,
Man.
it was pathetic.
It was some college basketball hoops,
yeah, it really was.
It really was. But I just don't trust Mitchell or Harden. I just feel like I just know too much. I want to pick them.
Sure.
I just feel like I know too much about those guys when things get. When the lights are on, turn off the lights. Turn off the lights.
Exactly.
I hate to be.
Jared Allen was the reason they got over the line in that series, though. Funny enough, the guy that was, the originator of the quote from the Knicks series a few years ago, he was actually the one who ended up he was the best player on the team in Game 7.
Yeah, and in fairness to them too, I felt like last year against the Pacers, I actually felt like that Pacers team they were shooting the lights out the ball.
Also, they had another that pace. Now look, the Pacers are. I'm saying this very carefully because the Pacers are going to come back next year potentially with Zubac and a top 4 pick, and that's why it's so important for teams like the Sixers.
Halliburton had COVID.
And the Knicks. I did. I saw he has COVID and he has a shingles.
He had shingles. Yeah. Oh my god. He's got
all this shit. Brutal. So he's unfortunately just, he's a very sick man right now, but he'll have plenty of time between next this year and next year to recover from this.
Hopefully he does, yeah.
Yeah, and the it's potential for for them to basically reload in a gap year where Halliburton's out for the whole year, they keep the whole core together except for Mathurin, who was more of a fringe guy anyway, and they upgrade in a different way. Obviously, Miles Turner provided them with the shooting element, but Zubac is just a different style of big, bruising big, great screen setter. Defensively is, I think, better than Miles Turner. And then you have the fact that they might be adding a top 4 pick. That's why it's so important for teams like the Cavs. All these 4 teams left: the Cavs, the Sixers, the Knicks, and the Pistons. This is why I said I thought at the deadline. The teams that were aggressive, even the Knicks, they just traded for Jose Alvarado, but they at least turn Yabu into someone that will give them something. And with the Cavs, the Garland for Harden trade was a risk, and all of the stuff they did was a risk, but you have to try something. The teams that I thought really fucked up at this deadline were the Sixers and Pistons that have made it in to this next round because they just clearly had flaws and depth issues that they could easily address at the deadline, and they chose to sit on their hands. And while they could still win a playoff series, they've limited their ceiling in an Eastern Conference that will only get better next year. Because I think there's a chance for Boston to reload. I think there's a chance for the Pacers to reload. I think there's a chance for these younger teams just to get better and get more experience.
Orlando, new coach.
Yeah, like you're gonna like Billy Donovan might be really good for what they need, and like they might be get some growth from Anthony Black, and like there's so many different factors coming into these playoffs that if you misdiagnosed if you misdiagnosed where you were at, it could be a fatal flaw for you ever making a conference finals or making the finals. Because this was the most it will ever be. Like you had basically two contenders in the Celtics and the Pacers from the start of the season completely compromised relative to where they were at a year ago. And everything has opened, the pathway has opened up for these teams. And it looks like, the only teams that might be able to end up taking advantage, the only team that might end up being able to take advantage of that is the Knicks because of the position that they were in. And I think that these teams will have come to regret this for years if the Pacers come back reloaded next year, if the Celtics do, and the East is just much stronger because it's hard to even get in the playoffs now in the East. Like it's not a guarantee. Like the Hornets were the 9 seed, and like that team would have been the 4 seed 5 years ago. Like
could the Hornets have beaten the Pistons?
I still struggle to get there. That matchup was really tough for them. Like they were just so physical with them. The Magic were a worse matchup for them because the Magic are one of the few teams that can match their physicality. And they also just have, like someone said, if you did a blind test, the perfect way to put it, Sam, my co-host, put it perfectly. He said, if you told me this was the 4-5 matchup before the season, I would have believed you.
Right.
And if this is the 4-5 matchup, we look at it, but the Magic have all these injury problems in the regular season. The Pistons play way above their heads in the regular seasons, and they kind of Memphis Grizzlies their way to 60 wins. And we just go, oh, well, that means they're going to translate immediately to the playoffs. Like, I have a hard time believing that Moussa Diabate and Miles Bridges would have been able to hold up as a front court in a playoff series. And I also think the things that the Magic exposed in that playing game, and honestly the Heat did, they were lucky to win that one too, was their lack of rim pressure. Is like they need a rim pressure threat. Like Bridges, Khan, and LaMelo are just way too perimeter oriented to be your only like lead scorer type guys. Like Bridges was important for them because he was the only guy who could get downhill, but like if you could upgrade either a rim running big that is like a little bit more effective and have Musa be like their Mitchell Robinson basically, and then or get a 4 as an upgrade that will be like a real like upgrade over Miles Bridges, like I would fear them a lot more moving forward.
Yeah.
Because they were someone I didn't even mention in this conversation, but like look at the 9 teams that made the playoffs this year and tell me which one is missing next year, and like moving forward, which one you're like fading. Like even the Raptors, I was like, Scotty Barnes looks so good in the playoffs that I can't, and Colin Murray Boyles did too, that I'm just like, I just think the East is way more competitive now than it ever has been.
For sure. No, it's they have also you don't even forget like what is Milwaukee gonna do with Giannis, right? Like
They should trade him, but we talked about this before.
Yeah.
Like now if the Knicks make the finals, if the Knicks makes the finals and they lose, do they even entertain the Giannis thing?
We're getting so ahead. Yeah, I don't know. We're getting so ahead of ourselves.
I know you're in the moment, but this is a
I was saying,
podcast.
If we had lost that Hawks series,
of course
you got to play that card. Yeah,
of course
that's happening.
I mean and at this point. Yeah. At this point, everyone would have laughed at you if you had.
If we had lost that Hawks series, we would have fired Mike Brown.
Of course,
for sure.
The rumor
and hired Donovan.
Yeah, I was gonna say the rumor that you guys are still considering that is kind of insane to me, just because he's the first year head coach. But the pressure that is on this Knicks team to make the finals and potentially win the finals is pretty massive relative to other Knicks teams of the past. And we've seen this more often recently where teams are just like, he's not the right guy for us, let's move on. Maybe he's proven something a little bit, but like I keep thinking about the Giannis thing, and I have obviously been scared that the Celtics would just be like, hey, here's Jaylen Brown and picks for Giannis, and then you put Giannis on that team, and with Brad Stevens' ability just to find talent, like I know the Tatum Giannis fit isn't super clean, but it's so good defensively, and like offensively, you can overcome that if you have enough good creation and shooting and all that shit around them. And then in the playoffs, having those guys to be able to be your 4-5 could be like pretty massive. that was always because my thing is the last time we played against the Celtics and we almost beat them in 2023, they then went on to lose to the Heat and they made major changes after that. And this is a similar level of upset where they're going to be aggressive in trying to make moves to upgrade. And even when the Sixers beat the Celtics, quote unquote, the Celtics come out on top. And like the Knicks, they dethroned the Celtics last year. And because of the Tatum injury, they had to have this gap year to get their finances under control and stuff. But like, if they see the Knicks make the finals, I think that will make them even more motivated to go out and do stuff. And they've just always figured out a way to pull themselves out of whatever hole they're in. That I'm just constantly annoyed if they end up walking away with Giannis and they rehab him and he's a top 3 player and then they have 2 top 6, 7 guys in the NBA and then
I'll be pissed.
They're a threat next year. Like it is the like we now are. I know how Miami Heat fans felt for all those years where it was just like we don't have the better team or record or whatever, but we can hang with these guys. And it is a feeling that I don't want to let go. Like, please give me more of this.
Yeah. No, once you get a taste of it, man, you see more for sure.
Exactly. All right, real quick. Finals from the West. Who do you guys think? Do you believe in the Wolves to make the finals? Or
I do not. I do not. Love what they're doing. Like, shout out to Ant for getting back.
Yeah.
He's just
Randall's our old friend Randall's been very good. Randall's
he's been great. Yeah. He's been Randall's good for them on the whole since he got there.
Yeah, Randall's awesome. He's a really awesome player.
He's great, man.
Yeah,
him and Cat are spiritual twins in the fact that they are extremely talented but also frustrating and play a very specific style. I think Cat gives you a higher ceiling than Randall does. But I just find it very funny that those two, both Kentucky bigs, got traded for each other,
and it makes sense as a trade, right? Like, I still miss Dante a little bit because I
miss DiVincenzo more than Randall.
Yes.
Well, he's out for the season now, unfortunately.
Right.
He is.
I just wish that Ant was more healthy and McDaniels is a very good player.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like they need a little more in order to beat someone like OKC. I think they have a chance to beat San Antonio, but I'll still go Spurs in 7.
McDaniels is kind of like their OG now. Like it's crazy that he has made another guy that was just like he was not that good in college, was like seen as like a defensive only player, and has just developed in such a fascinating way over the last few years that like. If you had told me a few years ago that we did a star in plain sight where we got to draft guys that we thought had more potential upside. And in 2023 offseason, must have been 2023, I drafted him as one of my guys because I was like, he can do a little bit with the ball. Like the shot making's getting there, like whatever. I never anticipated him to be, one of the best players in a series with Nikola Jokic and Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards. Like even what he's reached now is like pretty fascinating to me. But the Wolves are, if they make 3 straight conference finals, that's insane.
It's big time.
It's insane. I mean, it's insane for a franchise that prior to this had made 1 ever. Mm-hmm. Like to do that, like Tim Connolly he's our only real Hooper GM we have. He's just is always like, fuck it. Let's go make moves. Let's throw picks at guys. Let's we only have 4 second-round picks left. Let's use all of them on IO at the deadline, and he wins us a playoff series. He appreciates everyone being able to do a little bit with the ball and like is like aware of like the importance of having a skill set off of the bounce in a playoff context while still not taking anything off the table defensively. Like, I think they've done a great job there, and the Spurs will obviously make it a series, but like, I will say the size difference, you cannot win. Like I was very much on like the Spurs might just do it because Wemby is like a god. But
do you think he's got some concussion stuff happening?
I mean, probably. I mean, I can't imagine like the NFL guys are usually out for a week when they have a concussion, and Wemby was back in like 3 days. So I would imagine there's still some sort of Embiid had this happen to him a few years ago where he got his face broken by Pascal Siakam in the Raptors series. And then we were convinced he was concussed. He came back for game 3, which was like 6 days later. we were convinced that he was concussed for that whole series. Like he was fine in the Philly games, and then we flew to Miami, and he looked drunk on the court. I was like, did the traveling with the concussion? You're not supposed to travel. Like, I do think that they rushed him back because they kind of needed him, but like I do think that could have some, reverb in his mind right now. Like I can't imagine it didn't. But the last thing I want to say about this is like they only have guards and bigs. Their forwards are undersized Keldon Johnson and Harrison Barnes. And I know I was floored when I was watching that game last night, and they said De'Aaron Fox has 10 points and he scored 8 of them in the fourth quarter. I was like, oh my God, like this is a tough matchup for them in a way that I really didn't anticipate. And the importance of having real wings and forwards proves itself in the playoffs every single year. It's why the Cavs ceiling is as limited as it is. Like, and it's why teams like the Knicks and the Celtics and going back to the Heat and the Wolves and these teams just always have playoff success. The Thunder have been the only team that have figured out how to win a title without having like really high level wing and forward play. J-Dub's really the only two-way wing they had on that team. Pretty much, and even then it took them to the brink twice. Like they got to the brink in game 7 in 2 different series. So like, yeah, I know it will be I mean, the Thunder I think are just going to eviscerate the Lakers, but we'll see. I also thought that the Lakers were going to lose to the Rockets, and that did not turn out to happen. So yeah. So, all right. So Thunder for both of you guys coming out of the West then?
Yes. I will say Thunder's coming out of the West. Yeah.
I had Thunder Knicks before the season. I had Thunder Knicks before the playoffs. I still feel good about those picks. I wish that it wasn't the Sixers playing the Knicks right now, but yeah, thank you guys for joining. I do have to get out of here, but Jayson, your show, do we want this to go up on your feed too?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll send you it.
Yeah, perfect.
Sweet. And then so go follow the Jayson Buford Show, right?
Yep.
YouTube. I've been on there.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Yep.
We'll have to do an exclusive one on your platform later in the series, either after the series or sometime in the middle of it, and then give you time to listen to the Isaiah Rashad album because he's my guy, and we'll do a throwback 808 and Bars episode. So thanks for joining me, guys.
I would love that. TDE has become like a kind of a sore spot for me. So
they're like a family small business now. They're not really all that relevant anymore outside of SZA and Doechii. So peace.
All right, fellas. Appreciate it.
Take care.